so it is 3:06. Again, I'm Sharon Calitro. I will continue to try to get us live on YouTube, but the meeting is being recorded. So I'll call this meeting to order of the Affordable Housing Plan Committee. We do have a quorum, so we'll get started on acceptance. If anybody wants to make a motion to accept the minutes of October 18th, I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Paul, seconded by Bob Tabersack. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay, we have an agenda today, brief agenda today, and I'll turn it over to Francisco in a second. We're going to just take a look at some of the 2020 census numbers that just came out and how that affects our standing on the appeals list. I think we need to talk about, take our first shot at the vision statement after last month's meeting. We're going to talk about our survey and some upcoming events, and then and discuss those events. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll talk about where we're going for December. So with that, Francisco, I'll let you take over. You're muted. Hold on. You're muted.
I just need the screen sharing to be enabled.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. Oops, hold on. What is going on with me today? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Well, it's good to see everyone again, and I trust that you could see my screen. Is that correct?
No. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Francisco,
I am
will you
gonna
be
once
sharing
again-
this with us afterwards? I just want to know
Yes.
like how copiously I should be taking notes or not.
Right. We will be sharing a PDF of the presentation. And I just turned off my video feed so that it doesn't create an issue with the presentation. I'll turn it back on once we're done with the presentation. All right, so welcome to our meeting. As Sharon mentioned, we have a relatively brief agenda this evening. So I think we can get through it and not a long period of time. Real quick, we'll just revisit the project scope and schedule to make sure we're all on the same page as to where we're at, what it is that we're looking to accomplish. And as Sharon mentioned, we'll dig into the 2020 census housing numbers, take a look at the implications it has for the plan. And we've cobbled together a draft vision statement for you based upon our discussion last month, and we'll review that. And also, we will review the draft online survey that we hope to release soon once you've had a chance to review it. So we'll introduce you to that this evening and discuss the public workshop that we now have a date, a schedule for, and talk about next steps. Okay. Once again, our scope, we're about halfway done with the scope, in that we've done a lot of existing conditions work and research, and much of that's come through the Plan of Conservation and Development. But the big and most obvious pieces left are we need to do some community engagement centered around affordable housing as part of this project. And so that's planned, and the first step in that would be the online survey. And of course, we need to put the plan together. And so there's a lot of decisions that will need to be made about what the priorities are and what the strategies are. And I expect at next month's meeting, we'll get much more into that, into possible strategies for accommodating more affordable housing in Danbury. Our schedule. We're just on the schedule. We're just a little shy of halfway there, about a third of the way through. And so here we are, that first star in November. That blue star in January indicates a public meeting that we plan on holding at the library. And I'll talk more about that further into the presentation. And as I mentioned, for the most part, we've completed our data collection, and now it's a matter of making some sense out of it and figuring out what the priorities are in response to the numbers and the trends that we're looking at, and to start developing the plan itself, writing it, formatting it, putting it together. The public engagement we expect to get started in January, and the goal of all of this is to have the plan adopted well in advance of the June deadline. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the census numbers. The 2020 census data, or some of the 2020 census data, is being trickled out, and included within that are housing unit numbers for the city. And what we see is that there was an increase of 2,408 housing units over the 2010 census. That's a lot of units. And so Danbury now has north of 33,000 housing units. The impact that has on your affordable housing, your state qualified affordable housing share, is that it reduces it, because that is the total housing count is the denominator, is the number on the bottom that we're dividing by. When that number gets bigger, your share of affordable housing shrinks. So with the 2020 census numbers, housing numbers plugged in, the share of units and the unit count that we had from 2020 comes down to 11.14%. So this, I think, is a reminder that it's really important to remain focused on affordable housing. We can't take for granted the fact that the city has 12% affordable housing. And that it had been 2% over the state's 10% minimum, for a couple of reasons. One is because as units come offline, that number can shrink. As you have market rate housing developed, that number can shrink. And more importantly is, regardless of what that number is, we continue to see that there's a need for affordable housing in Danbury. Okay. Any questions on the impact of the new census data on the affordable housing number?
Francesco?
Yes.
Yeah, hey, it's Paul here. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit? Are we actually losing affordable housing, or is it just that, or for the most part anyway, that we're building so much unaffordable housing? In other words, we get the ratios change from 12% to 11%, but are we actually losing units? And if so, how many have we lost? In real numbers, not as a percentage.
You want me to jump in?
Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, anybody, sure.
Sure, yeah. So again, we're monitoring that. Last year, a couple of units came off the list. We did for the requests for this year, for the list that is going to come out in March for 2021. We actually added 2 units, but for the next list, for the 22 list, there'll be a number of also units that will be falling off. And that's just a function of, they were 20-year deed restrictions, and 20 years, you could believe it, is up. Some of those up in Briar Ridge, some of those units up there. So yeah, we're monitoring that there's a number of them over the next couple of years, and then we shouldn't have to worry about them for a while.
Okay, so just to clarify, in real numbers, we've lost a handful, but really what's going on is we're building so many new units that aren't affordable that we're
right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, that's
we're
good
close
news
to,
in a way.
Yeah.
It's not great that the gap is widening, but really we're not doing badly with affordable housing. We're doing fantastically with market rate housing. I think that's the takeaway from that. All right, thanks, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very, very much so, Paul. It's really about all the new housing that's come online that's reducing the share. All right. So let's talk about the vision. You probably all recall this exercise from last month. We asked you some pointed questions about housing in Danbury, affordable housing specifically. And we populated a list, and we started out talking about the strengths in Danbury, and I hope this all looks pretty familiar to you. We then talked about what the needs are with respect to affordable housing. And so from this list of strengths and needs, we put together a draft working vision statement. And I'll give you each, I'll give you all a minute or so to read it and get your heads wrapped around it. And then I'd like to talk about, you know, whether this works, if it misses the mark, if we're leaving anything out. And that way we can work towards getting this right for the plan itself.
Well, it's definitely conclusive, but isn't it kind of long for a vision statement?
Well, that's one comment. Right. So let's talk about that once we've all got a chance to get through it. Let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe there's something extraneous in here that could be stripped out.
Typically, a vision statement is something that you can put your arms around real quickly and get the gist, but this, you have to read all the way down.
Right.
Just a thought.
Yep. Yep.
I'm a little curious about all this continue to language. You know, your vision is really projecting forward, and the continue to sort of, you know, it's sustaining what we've been doing. But usually when I've seen vision statements, usually it's like, you know, we strive towards A, B, and C, regardless of the past. You know, not that it's wrong to, you know, mention the fact that we're continuing to do certain things. But it seems unusual to me.
Okay. Thanks, Ari.
Well, what would we say are the three key topics that we want to, because basically when you have a mission statement, you want to bring it down to like 2, 3, 4 items that you want to project. So I think as a group, what do we think are the most important objectives we have? Like 1, 2, and 3. That when someone reads the statement, what do you want them to get out of it? Is it diversity in housing? Is it the target towards affordable housing? Any ideas?
Well, I definitely like it. Sorry, Francisco.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Perry. I was just want to encourage all you folks to participate. And I think it's a question for you folks more than it is a question for myself. So go ahead.
I like that it addresses the different generations and age groups that are in need of affordability in their housing, and also kind of speaks to the affordability aspect more than just the quote-unquote definition of affordable housing. I do like that it, while longer, kind of addresses our more specific situation and needs a little bit.
So how can we get this message across and only just downsize it? That's I think the question. The experts will have to help us in that. We get the same results, but with less words.
Well, just for comparison's sake, I live in New Milford, and the affordable housing vision for New Milford is it's one sentence. It's New Milford is a welcoming community that strives to be socially, environmentally, and economically sustainable. I'm sorry, 2 sentences. This includes providing a diverse housing stock that encourages equity, opportunity, inclusivity, and affordability. So they had, you know, like maybe 6 or 7 key words, and they just sort of worked them into a sentence or 2. Seems a little bit more focused.
Yeah, once again, I believe that everything you talked about is great. We just have to be able to get it more contracted and make it so that it's not so wordy, but still don't lose any of the concepts.
Is there a particular sentence here that you would just as soon strip out because we've got it covered through some other content?
Hello? Hi, hello?
Hi,
Hey,
Bob, we can
Bob,
hear
we
you.
hear you.
Okay, commenting to the length of the statement, I think if you just look at the first 1 or 2 sentences, you can build off of that. Okay, Danbury will continue, will provide a diversity of housing options. Okay, options while focusing upon its supply of affordable housing or something like that. I think the statement saying that just it should be concise is true of most vision statements that I've seen. And it's just a question of what do you want to emphasize in this? I think diversity certainly is something in Danbury. And we are the Affordable Housing Committee. So like I'm saying, we could be focusing upon affordable housing, but we'll continue. We'll provide a diversity, but not saying we're not going to neglect anything else. But I mean, that's what I would do. I think we could build on the two. I think what Milford has is the length we want, but I'm not sure how the committee feels about what to include. But certainly diversity and focusing upon increasing the supply of affordable housing. I mean, we are the Affordable Housing Committee. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I would just add that I think we do need to work towards on the second sentence, the city work increasing housing choice for its most vulnerable residents, including those living in poverty and households with very low incomes. But as we went through the analysis several weeks ago, even though a unit might meet an affordability requirement under 8-30G, that's still not addressing the needs of some of our residents. So we can, housing diversity in price, diversity in the kind of housing it is, whether it's rental, home ownership. I mean, diversity covers a lot of things, and maybe use of that word can, get rid of several of the sentences here. But I do think we need to target it where we have appropriate infrastructure and services, and we have to ensure that we're taking care of those that are most in need.
So one suggestion I would make is that if someone could take a highlighter and let's highlight the information that's on here and start there, like all the keywords, affordable housing, housing options, whatever we think, and just put down yellow or green, and let's see how we can bring it down. I can't do that on the computer, so this is.
Yeah, Francisco, can you do that?
Yeah, let me
you highlight some of it and then.
Sure.
So for later,
he can insert a slide and then he can highlight stuff when he's in the presentation mode.
Let's do that. Let's take a stab at that right now. We have time, right?
Hey, Francisco.
Yeah.
Francisco, before you guys start, let me just give you my take on this. On the first sentence, I would simply say Danbury provides a diversity of housing options. Stop. The city works towards increasing housing choice for its most vulnerable residents. Stop. New affordable housing will include a diversity of products. Stop. Affordable housing will be targeted towards areas that have the proper infrastructure. Stop. And then the community will continue to be, the community is or continues to be a place that families call home. Stop. Danbury will foster a sustainable growth of its housing supply, and its housing will accommodate a range of residents from new arrivals to lifelong residents. I'm not even sure about that last sentence, but I would just chop every one of those sentences by 2/3. However, having said that, I understand Bob's point that the mission statement's too long, and as mission statements go, it is pretty windy. But the thing is, I don't have a problem with a long mission statement. What you could do is just edit that down by 2/3, but leave the entire thing on the splash page, so that you have a really tight mission statement, and then you could expand on that using this, and maybe even making that a little bit bigger, so you get into all the nooks and crannies of what this commission thinks would be appropriate going forward. So you have it, you've got the tight mission statement, but all that stuff is still in there. Because if you want to take some stuff out, I think I think you're going to wind up taking out some stuff that
Well, can we do line items, and we'll start, like you started with diversity. So on the next line, what's the most important thought of the next line? Affordable housing. And we'll just start putting letters, our thoughts together. But let's break it down to see, all right, you're going to highlight affordable housing because that's what we're about. That should be right there. Okay. The city will work towards increasing, some of this is chopped off by the pictures with the very low. I agree with Sharon. I don't think we have to go into the vulnerable residents and very low incomes. I think affordable housing covers that. That's being redundant.
yeah, and then
Wait.
the city working towards increasing housing choice. That's it right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But don't go into the vulnerable residents and those. living
Yeah,
in
I
poverty.
don't think you need to. This is the Affordable Housing Committee. You're here at this site, not us right now, but whoever's going to be tuning into this knows that they're at the affordable housing site. So I think that when the city says it's going to work towards increasing housing choice, it means in relationship to affordable housing. I would think anyway.
Okay. Then we have new affordable housing will include rental units, houses, and single family homes. So I think that's a description of what we're leading towards. So that's
And
That's
I
a
think on
range. You
that-
could talk about in terms of a range of housing types.
Right. I think that's all you need to say. New affordable. You got affordable in there. New affordable housing will include a range of housing units, housing types, housing products. That's all you need. As far as I'm
Maybe
concerned,
there is something in there.
but-
We mentioned those living in poverty and in households with very low incomes. Those are two different categories. There's the poverty level, but affordable housing is not just for people living in poverty. It might be worth having a word or two that sort of encapsulates that concept.
Could we say reduce circumstances?
What was that?
I have a question. One of the points we mentioned about affordable housing was that it concentrates on the median income in the community, and that we have a number of people that cannot, by the state's definition of affordable housing, we have a number of people who need housing but do not fall under the state's definition. So I think it's necessary to include something. If you don't like the word vulnerable, it's something though that addresses that.
I agree with Bob.
And maybe you don't like the word vulnerable. The city will work towards increasing housing choices for residents, for all residents, including those who
all residents of all incomes.
below the median income.
Yeah.
If you don't like to use vulnerable, I know vulnerable sounds, you're making a judgment there, social judgment. But the thing is, we want to include the people. The big problem is the people who cannot even meet the affordable housing rates that the state defines.
How about all
And
income?
you can use the
Bob
word
mentioned
financial
all income. I
vulnerable
like
as
that.
well.
So all incomes from poverty to high income or low income.
about
We'll
just
whatever.
continue to provide a diversity. We'll provide diversity of housing options while expanding its supply of affordable housing and housing which meet the needs of those who do not meet the state's definition of affordable housing or something like that.
Once again, the vision statement should be have pop to it so that when you read it, you get excited. You don't want something that's drawn out, but just, I've never seen one. I never saw a successful one.
Can I throw something out there?
Of course.
Sure.
How about something like, I happen to like the last line as the first line. So I was playing with Danbury will continue to foster sustainable growth of its housing supply and options, including ownership and rentals, intended to accommodate all of its residents of all incomes and different stages of life. I don't know if that covers everything or if that's.
I like that. I like
That could be
that.
the mission statement right there.
I like that.
It was in front of us all the time.
So the last line could be first, but then we pull out. So Danbury will continue to foster sustainable growth of its housing supply and options, comma, including ownership and rentals, comma, intended to accommodate all of its residents of all incomes and different stages of life.
That's as comprehensive as you can get.
I like that, Ted.
That's
I like
very
that
inclu-
approach. I think it's comprehensive. Should
And
we
inclusive.
be emphasizing, those who are in need of affordable housing? I mean, that's so general that it's all housing, but this is an affordable housing vision statement. Should we
Committee,
be more
Is there a
focused?
way, is there a way to clean this up the way Teddy wanted it so we can look at it and see what that looks like? Is there a way to be able to get those sentences in that?
provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Teddy, do me a favor and just repeat.
Oh,
Read back what you said to me,
Sure.
and I'm gonna type as
Yep.
we go.
yeah,
Okay?
absolutely. Danbury will continue to foster sustainable growth of its housing supply and options, comma, including ownership and rentals, comma, and then we can go back and put periods. Ownership and rentals, comma, intended to accommodate all of its residents of all incomes and different stages of life. Yeah, it's pretty general. We could hone in on.
That's excellent. That's a vision statement.
Okay, I don't get one thing. What I don't get is housing supply and options. I don't understand what that means. I'd say get rid of the and options just of its housing supply. What's and options supposed to mean?
I thought the options of choosing between an affordable with a deed restriction, a market rate, or a senior project, which
Okay,
has.
all right.
I mean, that's
then
all.
How about we just drop the and, so it's of its housing supply options?
Yeah, I mean, there's no pride of authorship here. We could chop it up however we want.
No, I just didn't understand. Housing supply is one concept and the options is another concept. I didn't know what that concept was. But what you're saying is the option is the housing supply option, whether it's rental, whether it's deed restricted, whether it's all part of the housing supply, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Got it. Okay.
It could put that in paragraphs, and so that you have what the options are. If there's a question in parentheses.
Including ownership.
I hate to keep
rentals
coming back to
intended
this, but every
accommodate.
time we say continue to foster, we're like patting ourselves on the back for a job well done. But are we currently fostering sustainable growth? It seems like if we kept things exactly as is, it's not really sustainable. We have the housing market not growing at the same pace as the population. So
How about responsible?
Where would you put that?
Instead of sustainable?
Sustainable.
I think sustainable is fine. It's the word continuing too that I'm struggling with.
Yeah,
which I think was just removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Danbury will foster sustainable growth.
Well, like someone said, we're very proud of the fact that we have a very successful city and we do want sustainable growth. So we're all looking for that. And because of that, we can offer these other options, which are to help people with lower incomes.
It's sure clear that you can't really have sustainable growth if nobody can live here.
Right.
I mean, if the workers can't afford to live here, you wind up with something like, I don't know, Darien or something.
So with that one that's listed there, it's so much cleaner. I like it so much more. Is there anything else that needs to be added to that we missed?
I would like to add something emphasizing, people approaching or below the poverty level. We could play with words there, but just something about an emphasis on the affordable. This is sort of a statement about housing generally, but not with an emphasis on affordable housing. It includes it. That's a subset, but it's really not the focal point of this vision statement here. And if this is the Affordable Housing Plan Committee, I think really there ought to be an emphasis
How about with something with a focus on helping lower incomes? Something you can mention with a focus of helping.
One more sentence.
With focus on helping people with the lower incomes.
Focus on helping.
Sounds good.
below the
Well,
median
it's
income.
I like below the median income because that's what the state affordable housing, I think, words it uses for wording.
So add lower incomes and below, and below the median state.
Oh, yeah, that might do it. That would sort of show that, you're showing the concern for that particular aspect.
I also, I'm not
we're doing
sure.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you need including ownership and rentals, because I think, as Paul said, options means that plus, so it's a range of styles and types, ownership and at different varying affordability levels.
Yeah,
So I think it's just, if you just say options, you've covered everything.
Unless you take out options, including, and just say of its housing supply of ownership and rental. So you could go either way.
Yeah.
I like options because
Supply
it's
options and
one
then
word
I like-
instead of 5 words.
I like the way it is right now. I think it's an improvement.
Government forces sustainable growth.
As long as we haven't lost the initial intentions,
Yeah.
bring it down. Mission statement should be
Supply
confusing.
options.
You shouldn't have to read it twice to understand it. And that's where we were before. So this
Yeah.
is so much better.
Yeah, I
You could
think this
also
is
take out
pretty much
intended
inclusive.
to and just go get rid of the comma after options, and it would read, Danbury will foster sustainable growth of its housing supply options, accommodating all of its residents of all incomes. All of its residents, of all incomes, with a focus on helping people through different stages.
Yeah, there you go.
Moving around, helping people with lower incomes through different stages of life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think sustainable takes
Yeah.
care of limited to areas where infrastructure and services, because that's being sustainable. So you've covered that sentence in like that one word.
It's getting pretty snappy. That's starting to get pretty powerful.
Well, you want,
Oh, it is. It
want-
really is. It's
gotta
starting to
pop.
get,
It's like,
it's getting a little pop there. Yeah.
yeah, well,
We'll
you
be
have
singing it on the
in
elevator.
there about like racial, ethnic diversity or anything like that, or are we going to keep this more sanitized?
Equitable, inclusionary. I mean, those are the
Yeah,
words.
I mean, a lot of the towns use those. Those are key words. Equitable, inclusion. Those are key words that signify that there's a commitment to racial diversity and that kind of thing. This is a little sanitized.
This is economic, yeah.
Okay, with a focus on inclusion, comma, helping people with lower incomes, comma, through different stages of life. How would that work?
I love it.
Yeah.
Focus on inclusions with a focus.
Inclusion, comma,
inclusion.
helping people with lower incomes, or even just getting rid of the helping, just inclusion, comma, people with lower incomes, comma, through different stages of life.
nice.
Yeah. Yes.
You can leave helping in or take it. It works either way,
I think we're really covering the key details here now.
Yes, yeah.
They're
Well,
going to
wait,
hate us.
we're
We just
missing
took their,
something.
their full page down to 3 lines.
With a focus on inclusion, people with, there's got to be a word in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need an operator there.
Danbury will
With a
foster growth of
focus.
its housing supply options, accommodate all of its,
Right, we'll
all of
leave-
its
we'll leave helping
residents
in.
of all incomes with a focus on inclusion for people with lower incomes and through different stages of life. I don't know.
I think you could put helping back in, honestly, helping
Yeah,
people.
put
I mean,
helping back
like,
in.
let's mull it
Yeah.
over. We don't have to finish this, this is, we can look at it and chew it over for the next, several meetings and see
Yeah,
if
we're
we want to
definitely in the
add
right,
things.
we're in the right direction though. This is so much
Yeah.
A
better.
big step
Yeah,
forward.
that covers the whole gamut.
Looks
Yeah.
good. I like it.
I think it's a big step forward.
I'm just trying to reduce the amount of paternalistic language in there. I was thinking focus on inclusion, helping residents with lower incomes or residents with lower incomes. The whole top-down thing kind of, in this particular environment is maybe, I don't know, that's just a thought that occurred to me. That we're a bunch of guys who figured this all out and we're going to help people who can't figure it out. It just,
Well, like Sharon said, this is a great rough draft. We can work on it, sleep on it, and think.
Sharon and Kara and Jennifer.
My only comment would be I agree. I would prefer to take the helping people out and just say inclusion of people with lower incomes or below the poverty level, something of that language, because this is something that we're striving to do and something we're trying to do in the future and build towards. And I don't necessarily think we need to say helping people. It's not like, hopefully we'll just
Okay, yeah.
create an environment where people will get there.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily helping.
How about accommodating instead of helping?
Then we'd have two accommodatings in there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can keep it with
How about, wait.
How about
Okay,
equitable?
Inclusion. How about with a focus on inclusion, income, comma, income, comma, you could put lower income on there, I guess, but you could actually just get rid of the whole thing. Just focus on inclusion and income through different stages of life. The through different stages of life would have to be changed a little bit to make it read properly. But instead of saying helping people with lower incomes, you could simply, you've already got residents of all incomes in there though, right?
Yeah.
It is getting a little redundant.
With a focus on
We've got residents of all incomes with a focus on inclusion. Maybe we don't need that at all, the lower income, because we already have all incomes. Does that cover it or not? All incomes.
How about equitability and get rid of that, helping people with lower incomes?
What if we just
Focus-
drop
yeah,
the of
focus
all
on inclusion,
incomes? So
equitability.
accommodating all of its residents with a focus on inclusion, lower incomes, and different stages of life, or something like that.
Sharon, if you went with inclusion and equitability through different stages of life, that would be great. But then somebody else I sort of stepped on somebody else's comment. They may not like that. So
With a focus on inclusion
and equitability.
Inclusion, equitability. Equitable.
But you don't want
Is there
people
such a-
lunging for the
yeah.
dictionary either. So
Yeah, I'm not sure of that word though. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would say let's keep moving. Let's chew on
Yeah.
this for the next,
man, it's like
Yeah.
95% better.
The focus on I think the idea of getting rid of helping though, it's a good idea. It's too paternalistic, to be honest. It's that word.
All right, so we're going to go to press with this one for now, and then we'll all get this, and we can put notes on it if we want.
The focus on inclusion.
Yeah, I would just say this is our working draft. In case anybody wants to listen to this meeting later on, so they don't publish.
Just put and. Could you put and over helping and see how it reads? And just the word and.
You know what? You could do with a focus on inclusion and helping people
And
through
people.
different stages of our lives. And that would eliminate all the paternalistic stuff in there, because we're actually talking about ourselves at this point. Who knows what kind of circumstances we're going to find ourselves in personally, with a focus on inclusion and helping people through different stages of our lives.
Yeah.
How about this? Housing supply options accommodating all of its residents with a focus on inclusion, including people with lower incomes through different stages of life. So you take out of all incomes. So when you say all of its residents with a focus on inclusion, including people with lower incomes through different stages of life.
That sounds good too.
I like that. I don't think we need of all incomes and then lower incomes, so we could drop the of all incomes.
That's what I said. So we got supply options accommodating all of its residents with a focus on inclusion, including people with lower incomes.
So you gotta have to add including before helping.
No, helping's out. You just put including in there.
That's two includings in a row. Inclusion and including.
That's two. That's two.
Includes. Okay.
Inclusion, including. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Supply options accommodating all
We
its
need
residents with
a
focus on.
thesaurus stat.
But we could just drop that word though, with a focus on inclusion, people with lower incomes, and all stages of life,
and through different stages of life, with a focus on inclusion and people with focus on inclusion, people with lower incomes, and through different stages of life. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to keep this keeping, which somebody put a line through it. Maybe the helping. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we decided we're just going to get rid of helping. Remove that from the equation. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Focus on
Accommodate
inclusion.
all residents.
People with
Where
lower
the
incomes.
focus on inclusion,
and
people with lower incomes. And
different stages of life.
Yeah, that comma and isn't really working. We need a new
and
bridge on
those
that.
I
through
think
different
it's-
stages of life.
I think it's just with a focus on inclusion and people with lower incomes through different
Yeah, that
stages of
works.
life.
Yeah, Ari, that works.
Yeah, inclusion and people with lower incomes
Through different
Through.
stages of life.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take out. Yep, the comma and the
Yeah.
and. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Danbury will foster sustainable growth of its
So we
housing
chopped the
supply,
heck out of this one, guys.
accommodating all of
No,
its
that was good.
residents with a
Danbury will
focus on
really
foster
good.
inclusion
sustainable
and
growth of
people
its
with
housing
lower
supply
incomes.
options.
But does it still have all the components that the original
With a
statement, which
focus
is
on
long
inclusion of
on,
people with
had?
lower incomes through different stages of life. Yeah, that works.
And the gentlemen that were helping us, does this still have the basis of what you were thinking when you put your original one together?
Yeah, we wanted to give you enough stone to carve. right.
Well, boy, oh boy.
Oh, you set the
We
stage, is
carved
what
this
you're
up
saying?
like a Thanksgiving
Yeah.
turkey.
Yeah, we didn't think it was where it needed to be, but we had a good sense that you would find your way there. So, and I'd like to remind everyone, we're writing an entire plan, and so we'll get a chance to elaborate on this vision and get into that detail. I think this is a very good statement.
I printed out the first version and I'm looking at this version and I think it really does capture the salient details. I think we really got to the essence of it there.
I think so too. It
Can I
pops,
just,
it's
I'm
good.
sorry, make one more suggestion? With a focus on inclusion, comma, equity, and people of lower incomes through different stages of life. So we also have that equity piece in there.
I like that.
It's only one
inclusion,
more word.
equity, and people. Yep.
For the inclusion, equity, and people with lower incomes.
That has a nice ring to it too.
That works too. Thank you.
Okay. How do you feel about moving forward with this?
Thumbs up.
Want to take a vote?
Let me just throw something out there. Swapping those for people. It just hit me that it may have a little bit more impact. I just find and people to be somewhat awkward after focus on inclusion equity.
And those with lower incomes.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's a good idea too.
And there's an and behind the arc. I don't see it.
With a focus on equity.
I'm losing part of this with the
Inclusion,
pictures.
equity, and those.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so this is it. That's nice, guys. I think that's excellent.
We
Might
make
be
a good
tweaked.
team.
Maybe it'll be tweaked a little bit in the future, but I think that for today, I think that's great.
Yeah, I like it.
It takes a village.
Yes. Or is this
All right.
something we're supposed to raise on or not?
I think we'll continue to wordsmith it next time, but I think I don't see it changing much after this. I think that looks like it's pretty solid.
Okay.
Yeah, I
good.
would say the same thing. We don't need to vote.
So
on
we're supposed to
anything.
raise a motion on this, or this is
No,
something that's
no.
work in process? Okay.
It's just to work as the whole thing. Yes.
Okay. All right. No,
Thank you.
excellent.
That was good. That was great exercise.
Yeah.
Sure was.
Well, I got to say, I was a little nervous when I came out with the comment in the beginning. I thought maybe you guys were going to jump on me, but okay.
Day's not over.
A vision statement should be able to read going down the highway on a billboard. It's like they shouldn't have to read it 3 times.
All right, well, let's keep going. We've got a whole survey to talk about, and
Okay.
I don't doubt that you'll have some opinions on that too. And that's why we're here. Here is the introductory text to the survey as it currently stands. And The reason we're showing this to you is because we're looking for your input. So this is all we could change any of this as you see fit. So we're going to go through the survey page by page or question by question and make sure we're hitting the mark. So I give you a minute to read this and let me know if you think this is an adequate introduction or if there's anything you'd like to revise or add.
And how will you get people to take the survey? How is this going to be implemented?
It's an online survey similar to the POCD survey that's currently online, and we will try to get participation as we have for the POCD through social media blasts, email blasts on the town's website, newsletters. We'll print out hard copies of the survey for distribution as well to senior center or wherever we have an audience of people that are a little less digitally savvy.
I just want to make sure it doesn't come back to us in the future that we didn't include everyone, and everyone, Ted knows better than everybody else here that unless we get the message out, sometimes it comes back to haunt you.
Yeah.
I would just say, if I can for a second, so we are kind of in the tail end of our POCD survey. And so we wanted to kind of get that wrapped up, which will be probably by mid to the end of December, Francisco, right?
Right.
A couple weeks
Right.
past our public meeting on that. And then because we didn't want to, overwhelm everybody with multiple surveys, we would then release the affordable housing survey. So there wouldn't be confusion about, oh, I just did one, or wasn't that in that? This will be very focused on housing. And then we have a series, and we'll talk about it in a few, about a workshop that we have scheduled in January, to get public feedback. So we'll do the same kind of promotion, social media, we'll have printed copies if we need it. But that's kind of sort of the state of the art of surveying these days, Bob.
Okay. Like I
I'm
said,
sorry,
as long as we get
one
numbers,
question.
make sure the message is out. That's all.
I was taking notes. If you're intending on beginning this somewhere around the middle of December when the other one concludes, how long is this going to go on for?
We're probably going to release this one, I would say the beginning part of January for probably a good month.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
And in that month, we will be holding in January, and moving ahead, but we have scheduled a night for a couple hours at the library and a workshop just on affordable housing. And then we'll have input from the survey, responses from the survey. We'll have input from people who attended the meeting. We may have a follow-up meeting after that, depending on the time frame. But that should give us enough time to solicit some feedback.
Thank you.
I just have a clarification question, just because I'm kind of new to this with this definition of affordable housing in the second paragraph. So at ARC, we have clients that come to us literally homeless, and they're part of this rapid rehousing program, and we place them into apartments owned by landlords throughout the area. But if there's a landlord that is just offering their apartment to a client of ours at a rate that they can afford with their funding from rapid rehousing, but the landlord hasn't done anything to register with the state or anything, is that technically still affordable housing? I mean, it seems like it is, but I don't know that it meets this definition here.
It does not. You're correct, Ari. It does not meet the definition. It does not qualify.
Except the voucher qualifies and is counted under the state's definition. So however, whatever program, it could be a RAP program, it could be a Section 8 voucher, that voucher is counted in a tenant rental assistant unit column. That's a different column than, for instance, a deed restricted column. They could be both, but in your scenario, in your example, if they're getting a voucher from a state and the state is providing financial assistance through the voucher, it does count.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not attached to the housing unit that they're in.
Right.
Okay, right. It's attached to the individual.
Correct.
Essentially.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but hang on there. I mean, do we don't count, that does not wind up in our inventory of affordable housing units, correct?
No, it does. It does.
It does.
Counts on, it does count on the list under 8-30G. It does count. So the Housing Authority, and their RAP program, again, their RAP programs are Section 8 and a bunch of other programs that the state runs. If there are some kind of tenant-based assistance, those get counted and they come like through HUD. They do their own double checking with HUD and ensure that, you know, the numbers are all consistent. So those do count.
Thank you.
Okay.
So maybe the answer is, Francisco, maybe it's housing, you know, maybe we need to just change that because that's the kind of definition under 8-30G, and we should be maybe using a different definition. Affordable housing is considered, you know, or housing is considered affordable if, you know, and then, you know, use one of this kind of standard, you don't spend more than 30%, blah, blah, blah. And just get, and you can include that maybe in here, but I think this is the affordable housing definition under 8-30G, and that's kind of sort of a different animal. A little bit.
You do have vouchers in there on the second paragraph. Subsidized with housing vouchers.
Right.
Housing provided by the authority and deed restrictions.
I think, Sharon, I think this conversation very much goes back to the intent of the affordable housing plan.
True.
And
Very
why
true.
the state is asking communities to do it. And it's my understanding that the state is now requiring a plan to improve compliance with the 830G 10% mandate.
Yeah, although you do say it in there, so I apologize. You do say as defined by the state as.
Yeah.
Also, I would like something in there that actually, I don't know the word I'm looking for, that highlights or defines or whatever, acknowledges the fact that 50% of Danbury's housing is actually affordable if the end goal is a price point determined by the state of Connecticut. We're already there, half of our housing. And it clearly does not meet these mandates. It's not subsidized with a voucher. It's not housing authority. It's not deed restricted. But it seems to me that the point of all this is to get tenants into a place they can afford. And the state has conveniently defined for us what they consider that to be in Danbury, and half our housing, more than half our housing, is at that level or below. I think that needs to be acknowledged because I don't think people really get that. I didn't know that until we started this process. I thought we were like 12%. We were actually at 12% money-wise. It turns out we're like 54% money-wise. That's a tremendous lever that we have. That I think that should be communicated to not only to people in Danbury but to the surrounding communities. We've worked really, really hard so that our market rate housing, and this is by competition, there's so much housing in Connecticut, the price of housing is just sort of just, the market itself is subsidizing housing in Danbury because there's just so much of it, and that was deliberate. It took a lot of work to do that, and I'm sure there's landlords out there that wish they could charge more, but they can't, and that was public policy. I mean, we didn't do that by accident.
So can I ask a question? So if the vouchers that are given are part of you're saying are part of the calculation of the percentage of affordable units in Danbury? Is that true?
Yes.
Correct.
So in other words, a voucher is given to someone in need. They can actually use that voucher has value. So regardless of the rental, a monthly rental, they're being subsidized through a voucher that has a cash value. Is that correct? So in theory, someone is using a voucher, they could be moving into a monthly rental that's not considered, the monthly rent is not considered affordable, but the voucher makes it.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So if this goes back to the first meeting that we had when I said, when I went to go look for that sheet of plywood that usually cost me $11, it cost me $58. Since it's virtually impossible to build something affordable right now, in theory, one of our ways to help with affordable housing is to seek those that need vouchers if we can't provide any rental price or sale price accommodations as affordable, right? I mean, basically, to subsidize the needy for a rental is getting government to help our existing product become affordable for someone. Since we can't construct it.
I think Kara can help us out, but the problem right now is that there are vouchers that are going unused because we don't have housing. And
So there's vouchers.
We have two issues. One, we have vouchers and we're having trouble getting them into places because of the second issue. It's not that we can use the vouchers to like subsidize a more expensive place. It's like they're only eligible if that place is down to a certain price point.
Okay.
And so if I'm the landlord, I don't want to drop to that level because I can make more money off someone else.
Okay. I thought it was like a dollar amount toward that. So you're saying the voucher is for the whole monthly.
Yeah.
Got it.
We can't place anyone into anything that costs more than that price point.
Okay. Sorry. Forgive me for my ignorance on that. I was unaware of that.
What happens is that we all have a guidance that for Fairfield County, they have certain amounts for 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And Litchfield County has a different one, which is less. But you have to, they call that the average affordable unit. And that's what you have to work with. So they'll say that they're only going to, and everything usually includes utilities. So if it doesn't, then whoever's working with the voucher is going to have to back data or back price it so that the information or the utilities comes out of it and they take $200 or $300 a month off it.
Yeah.
And then the voucher person is usually supposed to be responsible for 30% of whatever the rent is, unless they have special circumstances, which I've had in the past where the voucher will help them get total 100% and even help them towards their electric bill. Depends. If it's a mother with 2 or 3 kids and has no income, then it goes deeper than zero.
Yeah.
And I think it's somewhere Teddy around $1,350 to $1,400 for a 1 bedroom. That's the top. And if you're beyond that, you can't. If you've got a voucher, you can't rent an apartment.
I think it's closer to 1,200.
Right there, tenants with illnesses, infirmities, whatever, that are getting 100% subsidized, including utility. They don't pay for anything except maybe, I don't know, the internet or something like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
But even if we had incentives that we could offer landlords, like a major tax break or something, we still don't have enough units to put the people in.
Right.
That's the other issue.
Right.
Well, first of all, we have to qualify that. We don't know if there's not available units out there, and some landlords just don't have the right concept of what affordable housing or what voucher system really is. And they've heard from their buddies, oh, don't do that. You're going to get people that are bad. They're going to destroy your unit. And so we need to actually, part of our program should be that we need to get the landlords together and educate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Once again, it's this fear factor. I don't want to get into that again, but it's information that's not accurate. It's out there, and you hear one landlord say, well, I had somebody in with a Section 8 voucher. They destroyed the apartment and it was a nightmare. And then 5 of his friends say, well, I'm not going to rent. So we have to dispel that. We need to have credible people like myself to say, hey, we have been in this system for 35 years. It works. Integrated housing works. We can show you how. So I was talking to when our group that we got together as far as for the hotel as well, but we're just discussing that and saying how we need to educate people so that we can get people open to this. And there used to be a time when the housing department would have classes just so they could tell you, but anybody that has a sizable investment in real estate in Danbury and doesn't have like 25 or 30% of their portfolio and really income that's guaranteed, if you will, that'll take you through the recessions, depressions, or whatever. And when you get really large, I think they're missing the boat. I really do. And I could prove it to them. And then
You're absolutely right about that, Bob. There are some real advantages to working with these clients because it is a guaranteed, source of revenue. If you just take a, regular renter, they could lose their job and they don't have
Right.
the revenue to pay their rent. But if you have somebody who's in one of these programs, then you're probably going to get your money. So
Unfortunately, you're getting $2,000 or $2,500 a month from a tenant, and those are the mid-range managers that, when we have a recession, they're the first to go. So those are the people that come back to you and say, "I'm so sorry, but I can't afford the rent." And then I feel so bad because they really are in a bad place. But those are always the people that get hurt the most, the mid-range managers. So that's something to think about. But once again, information is important. We need to educate people, and then we really should come up with an idea of how we can educate landlords so that this is acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's critical.
Yes.
Absolutely. 2 sentences before you started talking, Bobby. I'm like, went right through my mind because I'm learning things today. I'm going, this is a big part of this is education.
Right.
A lot of people, because I didn't know until I asked, but a lot of people don't know.
You're running into a lot of that these days, Ted.
Absolutely. Thank you.
But that's why we're on this committee, I hope, and we can make a difference. But it's educating the public and having people that have good names to say it is a good program. If we can have the Nolans come out, myself come out, and even like anyone that has a lot of apartments, like anyone downtown that comes out.
Joe DeSilva.
Joe DeSilva, definitely. And Joe definitely 25 or 30% or 40% of his whole repertoire is basically assistance. So it's very important.
That's great.
Hey, Francisco, let's keep moving. Again, we'll give you the PowerPoint, we'll give you a PDF so you can mark things up if you're, over the next couple of weeks. So let's just keep moving.
Yeah. I didn't want to shut down the conversation. It's all, it goes to the core of what it is we're trying to accomplish. So I wanted to hear you out on that. But as Sharon points out, it's getting later into the evening and we still haven't gotten to the first question. So
I'll mute myself.
Okay. Typically in these types of surveys, we like to ask just a little bit of information about who the participant is. And all of these questions are optional. So if you don't want to answer, you just skip through. So we ask, where in Danbury do you live? Or maybe you live outside of Danbury and you're participating because you own property or whatever it may be. How long that association has lasted, or how long have you lived where you live? Do you rent or own your home? And then some questions about how many people live in the household, age, and current household income. These questions make sense?
Sure.
Okay. And then so that's some of the biographical stuff. Then we get into, what do you think about housing? What are your thoughts? So question 7, do you think that the housing available in Danbury today is adequate to meet future needs?
What is that little bubble there? You have a bubble followed by a 0 after?
Yeah, it's the number of people that have responded to that question.
Okay.
So because we have not released the survey, it's at 0.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And when taking the survey, you wouldn't see that. That's my dashboard view.
Okay.
I just had one question about that. I think it should be more information as to what the future needs will be. Do you think that the housing available in Danbury today is adequate for future needs? Well, I think we have to identify our needs for them to tell you yes or no.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So are you suggesting that we need to communicate that we don't anticipate that Danbury has or will have the type of housing it needs?
I think once you find out, what do we need more? 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, or houses? But unless they have a questionnaire where they can mention to you what the needs are, then you're not going to know what our future needs are yet until they come back with that. We don't know what the future needs are until we know what the population looks like and what their needs are. And if they're coming in, it's basically, if we're only building 1-bedroom units, then it's going to be different than if we're building 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units.
Okay.
So is there a way to elaborate on what the future needs will be so that they can say, yes, I agree, we don't have enough, or we do have enough?
Yeah, maybe it's that we need to break this question down into a couple, 2, 3 questions and seed those questions with some more information.
Yeah, do you see more of a need for 1-bedroom units in this area, or 2-bedroom units, or 3-bedroom units? Maybe that's the question, or just elaborate more.
Oh, Francisco, you have those in there. We just haven't gotten to them yet. So maybe you have some of those questions.
We do have questions to that effect. So I think at issue is whether or not a vague question like this is helpful.
Right.
I think it's helpful.
All right, let me keep going down the list here. Maybe this will make more sense as we get through more of it. Question 8, do you think that housing in Danbury is affordable for the average resident? Question 9, are you concerned about the cost of housing or home ownership in Danbury? Question 10, have you or anyone you know struggled to afford their housing in Danbury or left Danbury because they could not afford housing in the city?
Francisco, when you came up with these questions, I'm assuming that you've used them before in other towns, and that there were other questions that just didn't seem to be useful that you've sort of jettisoned over time, but these seem to be based on your experience working with other towns. These have been useful tools.
Yes, we had in stock probably 100 or so types of questions to pull from, and so we went through those. RKG, our partner on this, is doing the regional plan for the SCCOG region, and they've worked with a range of community sizes within that region, including New Haven, some of the smaller towns. So they had a lot of questions that they tailored towards communities of different sizes that we went back and forth with them on, and try to really identify questions that were most relevant to Danbury, given where you're at and what your needs are. With that said, you know your community better than we know it. So if there's a question we're not asking, or if we're asking it the wrong way, let us know.
Thanks. I have a little bit of trouble with question 11. I just think it can be very difficult for me personally to rank 8 different things. And when we say that, it should take 7 minutes to do this whole thing, that would be like, I could easily spend 7 minutes on just question 11. I wonder if maybe we should be ranking fewer things, or I'm not even sure how helpful it is if you get 500 responses. I don't know how many responses we're going to get. If they're all ranked differently, the various permutations are quite broad. Has that been a helpful question in the past?
It has, and different versions of this as well. I agree with your comment about ranking questions. They take some time, so we didn't lean on this too heavily as a question format. I think this is the only example of it we have. If you think it's problematic, maybe we need to break this question up into some different questions.
It's problematic for me personally, but I'm only one responding here. I can't
All
speak
right.
for the town of Danbury. Maybe for most people it would just take 2 seconds. For me, I could really dwell on that question for a long time.
Okay.
I personally, myself, I'd be completely lost 1 through 8. It would be easier for me to do 1 through 3. One
Okay.
would be, 1 would be pretty bad, and 3 would be really great. I guess you'd have to define if lower means higher and higher means low, whatever. But 8, that's just such a weird number for me. I could see 1 through 10 or 1 through 5 or whatever. But I'm kind of stumped where I would go with 1 through 8. Am I more a 6 or a 7? Is that too close to 8? Maybe I'm more of a 5. I don't. I'm kind of with Arya. It would take me
Okay.
a bit of time to stumble through that. I'm assuming you did that for some statistical ease going down the road when you finally process that. But in terms of a survey taker, I'd be kind of lost on that. I'd prefer
Sure.
1 through 3. But also on questions 7, 8, 9, and 10, I would like to see yes, no, mostly yes, mostly no, and then I'm not sure. Because all of those things are so binary. Do you think that the housing available in Danbury is adequate to meet future needs? Yes. Well, it is. No, it isn't. I'm not sure if it is, but but I think it is. I don't want to say I'm not sure. I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'd say, yeah, mostly yes. Some people might want to say mostly no. I don't know if adding those two things would screw the whole thing up, but it would give, I think, the survey taker a little bit more flexibility, which I think is kind of stuck here. But I think number 11, there's just, for me anyway, there's just too much flexibility. I'd be kind of screwed up on that one.
All right.
But I don't know. I mean, Francisco, maybe there's a reason you did 1 through 8. I'm not really getting.
Well, we
what's behind it.
have 8, right? We have 8 options. This is a ranking. It's not a rating, it's a ranking. So what's the top issue? Put that at the top.
I see. You're not asking for each one to be ranked 1 through 8. You're asking for all of them to be ranked in the aggregate 1 through. I'm sorry, I missed that completely.
Yeah, well,
that would have really screwed me up.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
In practice, if you were taking it, it automatically it only allows you to choose 1 as 1 and
Okay,
1 as 2.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. I just spent 5 minutes on something.
No, that's all right. I think.
No, but that proves my point. It can really take a long time to deal with these things just to try to figure out the nature of the question.
If
I
it's
suggest, can I just
confusing to you
suggest
now,
one thing?
yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I'm thinking that maybe if you were to ask the question and then just give 3 either that you agree, disagree, or have no opinion on for each one of these, and that would go a lot quicker. But because I think all of them are important, and for one reason or another, they should be asked, and we should be able to get an answer from everyone on all of them. So if you would rate the importance from least important to most important to in the middle, 1, 2, or 3, then we get a better idea from all of these, which are really different. They're good topics, all of them.
That would be, that would be the compromise. We just keep them all in there, and rather than rank them all 1 through 8, each one gets a rank 1 through 3.
Right.
Either it's negligible, or it's a big deal, or it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important, least important, and somewhere in the middle. I think we really need to know what people are thinking about all of them. And I'd hate to have it so it's 1 through 8, because I think that's like you're going to throw them off, and I think you'll get more of a reading if you do each one of them and go 1, 2, or 3.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that.
Does everyone agree, or?
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. We'll plan on doing that. Question 12 is an open-ended question in case there was something that we didn't cover. So what you can't see is if you were to choose yes, you would get a comment box that would allow you to write sentence, paragraph, whatever it may be. All right, continuing on. There's the rest of question 12 there. 13, question 13. Danbury currently has 1,615 state-defined affordable housing units. Are you aware of any issues related to those housing units? And
Would that be
I think-
like, would that be like mold and water leaks, or are you're just looking
Yeah,
for, we need
we're
more of
looking,
them?
yes, we're looking for everything.
Okay,
What we're trying to get at with this question is the fact, and this goes back to what Bob was speaking about earlier, that this works for people, is that these properties are really a real asset to the community, and an overwhelming number of cases, they are not problem properties, right? These are good tenants. These are good properties, and there are very few issues actually surrounding them. But often there is the perception that affordable housing brings with it, there's a stigma associated with that, with affordable housing. We're trying to punch through that. So we want to open this up to you. Tell us what the issues are.
okay, so
There
you're
are
looking for somebody to say gang activity, drug activity, things like that.
Yeah, let's hear it. What are the perceived issues surrounding affordable housing?
I just think that needs to be worked a little bit, and I'm just thinking how. Basically, are you trying to see if there's any negative thoughts about this, or you want to get positive as well? Right now, I'm not sure what you're looking for. And maybe it should be a two-part question. Danbury currently has 1,615 state-defined affordable housing units. Have you found them to be an asset or a deficit?
Well, Francisco, are you expecting that the survey taker is going to fill that out, or would you like us to give you a list of things that we think they might say so they can just check them off?
If they, as we have it set up right now, if they were to choose yes, they get a comment box where they could enter in their issues, what they perceive to be the issues.
Okay,
just think
yeah,
right
'cause I would
too vague.
prefer that instead of like a plethora of drug activity.
Right,
Lots
no,
of-
we're not gonna
lots of
list
people
them.
that scare me. Okay, so let's leave that blank. Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Okay.
No.
Can I say something about question 13?
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
Would it sound better to say Danbury currently has a total of 1,615 affordable housing units as per state's definition, instead of saying Danbury currently has a total of 1,615 state-defined affordable housing units?
Right, yes. We can do that.
Okay, yeah, because that somebody's just going to look and they're going to say, you know what I'm
Yeah, the
getting.
wording's a little awkward. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then to elaborate on that, what do you want them to say? Do you want them to say they're in favor or they disapprove? I'd like to know what's going on with that side of it. Sharon, do you have any ideas on that?
Are you meaning for what comments you
Yes.
want back from
yes.
them?
Yeah.
No, I think we should leave it open, let them tell us if
I mean,
there's,
but you want to kind of like push them more into thinking about, do you approve or you disapprove of it? Right now, it's rather vague.
Yeah, well, Bob, I'm not sure we're trying to push them in any direction.
right.
We're just trying to get their first reaction to affordable housing. Do you have any negative associations with it versus leading them in a particular direction?
Okay. If you can get some accurate information back from that, fine.
If I think if we hear, maybe we hear 90% of participants tell us there's no issues that they're aware of whatsoever. And the 10% that we hear from, we begin to understand what people's concerns are as they associate them with affordable housing. And maybe it brings to light something that the plan needs to address. You talked earlier about the need for property owners and developers to come together to talk about the fact that the voucher program works and it's a positive to the community. Well, that's in response to the perception that's out there that it's not good, that your property will be damaged by these types of tenants.
All right.
That's the type of information that we're looking to uncover from people. Like what are their concerns or fears or perceptions? And maybe we can figure out a way to address that through the affordable housing plan. Is it an education campaign? Is it, I don't know what it is, because we don't know what those issues are yet. And we want to hear them.
I'd like to see a question in there along the lines of, do you or does someone you know currently live in subsidized housing? I think that would go, it's been my experience when I'm in subsidized housing neighborhoods, there's quite a few in the 6th Ward, that we really get an earful from, you know, wow, a councilman's here, I got to tell them about my, and they tell you their window doesn't shut. I mean, the door squeaks when they open it, and they just unload. You can be there for an hour and a half while they're unloading about like that light flickers in the hallway. So I'm simply saying that if this survey winds up in the lap of people in subsidized housing who want to vent, it could skew that question number 13. And if that happens, we won't know if they're just, you know, talking about subsidized housing in theory, or they're actually talking about their apartment. So if we had a question in there that gave us that information, might be helpful. I don't know if you want to put it in there because it's somewhat personal, and I don't know if you want to go down that road, but I think it would be helpful for me to interpret that survey to find out if I'm dealing with somebody who actually has some serious issues about XYZ on
the only thing I want to bring up on that, though, Paul, is that you want to make sure we're staying in line with affordable housing versus low income housing. And I think when you're talking about the different Mill Ridge and Fairfield Ridge, that's low income housing. That's something altogether different than what we're directing this to. So
okay, hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah, we want to stick to the point that we're working with affordable housing and not low income housing. There is a difference. In the past,
I'll
is
leave
question
that.
number 13 in the past worked for other surveys you've done? If it has, then let's leave it. If it hasn't, then let's work on it. But if it's, let's not change it if it works.
Yeah, but the thing is, we wouldn't really know, would we? I mean, if this was being filled out by people who actually have personal experience with problematical housing, but we don't know that, we'd never know that. And if you did this in Torrington, how would you know unless you asked? That's where I was going.
And once again, I want to make sure that we're getting the information back on affordable housing and not low income housing, and what they think about how Danbury's handling the different the complexes that they have that are run by the town, the city.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that the question be, do you live in city subsidized housing? I've just said you have personal experience with affordable housing. Could be a question on there. But I'd leave that up to Francisco if he could craft that question in a way that satisfies my need for more information concerning if the survey is going to be skewed one way or the other, and Bob's need for being really specific about the type of subsidized housing we're considering here. And maybe it can't be done. I don't know. Maybe that's a separate survey. Maybe we actually ought to do a survey about our subsidized housing. That could be a survey for another day. Because I got to tell you, when I'm out there campaigning, boy, oh boy, do we get an earful. And I've talked to, in the old days, to Caroline Sistrunk about that. And I was sort of like the pipeline between my constituents and Caroline, because they didn't really want to talk to her specifically. They figured there'd be blowback. Not that there would be, but they were more comfortable talking to me. And then I would pass it along to Caroline.
But that's what I found with other investors, is that they have a misunderstanding about affordable housing and low income housing. And they think it's all put together and it's the same. But it's
I take your point, Bob. I got it. Yeah.
But I mean, unfortunately, out there, the guys don't get it. A lot of the developers don't get it. And people in general don't get it. And then when applications come in and you say you're coming in for affordable housing, they misconstrue and say, no, it's going to be low income housing. And that's going to be to anybody that wants to be there. And then they have a different concept of who's going to be there versus affordable housing, which has a lot more restraints. And basically it's people that do have incomes, but it's they're lower brackets.
Mm. Well, I mean, we can move on. I don't have a problem either way, but there's information there that I would like to have on the survey.
let's see how it comes back. I mean, if you have to do a little caveat, then fine. In the past, have you seen that this questionnaire at Francisco, has this worked? 13, you got reasonable results from the question?
No, and I'll tell you why, because I introduced this question to this survey for the purposes of really trying to drill down on this issue of what are the issues surrounding perception with affordable housing. So we haven't used it before.
Do you see where my thoughts are about the conflict between affordable and low income, though, and how they get misconstrued?
Yeah, that's why we're at in the introduction, we're trying to be very intentional about defining affordable, and we're trying to be very intentional about that, realizing that people may still confuse or misconstrue what it means.
Okay, all right.
Okay, the next question, question 14, is intended to get people to think about where future housing development should occur. Now, we could be more specific with this question. I left it broad in just referring to housing development. We could ask specifically for where more affordable housing should occur. But the point is to get people thinking about where in Danbury geographically.
Yeah, I think you should put in affordable housing.
Okay.
So take out housing as future affordable development housing.
Your future affordable housing development. Or future, where's
Future affordable housing development. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do the geographies make sense?
Yes, I think so.
I mean, with the geography, it's going to go to zoning, and north of 84 means there's not going to be any multifamily housing. So that'll be just by what you've done. It's going to be, well, that'll be single family houses west of 39 and north of 84. That would be, could be partially multifamily, but probably, Sharon, you'd be the best judge of that. I mean, number one is exclusively going to be for single family housing, right?
I would have to look at the zoning. I mean, you got to divide up the city somehow. So, and there's opportunities to have, affordable, single family, detached in a cluster. I mean, there's lots of opportunities. So, I think we need to just look and it'll tie back to, I think, the perceptions also about affordability, where it should be located and what are the important.
Yeah, but just by nature of the location, you're right. You have to be able to do cluster housing or group housing for north of 84, but you won't be able to have like an RMF 4 zone where you could the square footage per is going to be a lot greater.
Yeah, now, but I mean, this is forward looking. We don't
Right.
know what item zone 1 is going to be zoned at in 25 years or zone 2. No one had any idea in 1970 that the people working on the POCD would rezone the west side from basically farmland or RA 80 to IL 40 or IL 8, whatever it was, rezoned, and then that would get reversed in 20
Right
years
now,
later.
the P&D, right.
Yeah, right. So yeah. I mean, Bob's point's right. You can't do a lot of that stuff in some of these zones. But if the people in Danbury want, you don't want to get in front of a whole bunch of people. If that's what they want, you know what, they're going to get it. So yeah, it's something that it'd be information would be handy to have, I guess.
Well, we have two projects up. We have two parcels up in Zone 1 right now that are affordable. Isn't there Stetson Place has affordable units, I think?
Mhm.
And the other one up by Bear Mountain, Pelagonia Village, I think that has a couple affordable units in there. So that, what's interesting, and I thought about it when we're on question 12, are there any issues related to housing? Wait, where is it? Are you aware of any issues related to any affordable housing? I'll bet you people living in Stetson Place don't even realize that some of the units are designated as affordable.
I'm sure they don't.
Yeah, so
Which
it's
is
like,
kind of the whole purpose of, they should all be,
Yeah.
constructed in a similar,
yeah, exactly.
you wouldn't know.
Right.
Yeah, and you would. Briar Ridge is a classic example of that.
Yeah.
You go into all those ridges,
Exactly.
Apple Ridge and Lilac and all that, they all look exactly the same, and yet Briar
Yeah.
Ridge is affordable, and it's just the same as all the rest of them, which are,
Yep.
by the way, super high end. They're going for like $500,000 each. You cannot drive through that neighborhood and say this is affordable housing, and yet it is.
Yeah.
That's
Or was until the deeds expired,
correct. That's true too.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right, Ted, because up on Jeanette, up on
Oh, right. Sure.
right,
Yeah. 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 That's right.
the Scupo Road properties are in 2, basically.
Yep. They're in 2.
The Renaissance, they're all affordable. Those are all
Right.
affordable. So yeah, I think how you've broken it out is good.
It is as good as any. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let's move forward.
Okay.
Okay, question 15. And I hope we're not getting in trouble with this format of question, but how much need do you think there is for more rental housing of the following types in Danbury? And here we're focused on sizes and types.
Yeah, I like that a lot. There's a
I
lot of
do-
information in there.
I
Yeah, we
do
need
too.
to have, we need to ask this kind of question.
No,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
important.
Great.
And it's not unlike the ranking question. This is a rating question. So you could choose all very high need. You're not
Sure.
forced to rank. Yeah.
Yep. That's pretty hard data. I like it.
All right. What type of impact do you believe more rental housing units would have on Danbury? Positive, negative, no impact?
I'm sorry, the question again?
Yeah, question 16. It's the follow-up on question 15.
right.
And it's what type of impact do you believe more rental housing units would have on Danbury? Positive, negative, no impact? Do we want an option for not sure?
How would you handle a not sure? What's a not sure considered?
Yeah, that's why we like to avoid them. Like to force people just pick one.
Can't be on the fence.
Yeah,
No
not
abstain.
sure is not helpful to us.
I think those 3 are pretty good because at least you get some direction as to the way they're thinking.
Exactly.
All right, so we'd leave that 16 would be fine.
So the questions on the right side of the page are just like the questions on the left side, except it's asking about ownership versus rental.
Just as an aside, Francisco, I've often found that when somebody tells me they're not sure, it really means they don't care and it's not an issue. So actually a not sure is really helpful to me. I'm trying to gauge what an issue is in a neighborhood. And if they say, gee, I don't really know. Well, what about flooding or what about noise or crime? And they say, yeah, I'm not really sure. They're telling me that they're satisfied with the status quo. So
Right.
to me, a not sure is actually really important. Maybe not to you guys, but it is to me as a politician. When I hear that, I'm saying, okay, we're probably doing a pretty good job. You want to hear, you guys are friggin' great, and we've never lived in a place like this. And every time we get up in the morning, we say, thank God we're living in the 6th ward, but nobody says that. So they just say, well, yeah, okay. It's like, it's good, which means whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So.
Would you feel that that's pretty close to no impact?
Yeah, it kind of. kind of, but no impact is more of a, I've also found this other thing that I do when I'm in the field, so to speak, and that's to talk about anything but what I want to talk about, which is, what do you think about the roads? What do you think about crime? What do you think about unemployment? So we talk about baseball or something, and then eventually the penny drops and the constituent realizes they're talking to a politician, and they go, ooh, I got to tell you about this thing. They blurt it out. Whereas if you ask them, you're kind of forcing them to respond to you. Oh, this guy needs some information. Let me just give you some information. So I try to let it pull. So when those three questions, positive impact, I got to make a decision. Negative impact, I got to make a decision. No impact, I got to make a decision. Because in my, brilliant opinion, there's no impact on any of this stuff. Whereas not sure simply means, I don't know, I don't care. Everything's good. So I think it is a little bit different, Bob, than no impact. For me, anyway. Maybe not for the commission, but for me, dealing with constituents, not sure. When I hear not sure a lot, and that's really important.
The lack of the not sure option, I think, forces people to really think about the question and try to deliver a well-considered response versus kind of opting out of having to do that thinking.
Yep, I got it. And for you, that may be critical, but for me, that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to let them force me to hear something. I'm not trying to force them to tell me something. I do the opposite when I'm talking to constituents. I just would beat around the bush. And Ben Chinazy, by the way, if you want to know, is the best guy in Danbury at doing that. But it takes him 45 minutes. But anyway, he gets there. And when the guy he's talking to says something, boy, oh boy, it's really important for that guy to say that.
Ben's an accountant, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. And he is the best schmoozer. I thought my dad was the best, but Ben.
That's just the nature of an accountant. He's got to be exact.
I guess so, yeah.
Right down to the penny. He's got to find out. That's just nature of the beast. Whatever you decide, I don't think it's something that we should dwell on. If you want to put in there, everyone else agrees, it's fine. I don't see it as a negative or a positive, whatever you want.
I don't care. I just brought something up that not sure can actually be something that's very impactful.
If it makes you happy, put it in there, or let's go on.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to point that out.
I'm good.
Okay. And how about the question 17, the home ownership questions? Do those types that we're listing, does that make sense to you?
Just like 15, I think it's very adequate.
Yeah, I think it is. There were some complaints in the 70s and 80s that we were over condoizing Danbury. I don't really hear that much anymore. And now the pendulum seems to have swung in the other direction, at least in Connecticut, particularly in the more urban areas, that we're over single family-izing Connecticut. So I would like to hear that. I don't particularly think
that has to do with the fact that your average single family now is what, $300,000 or $400,000 versus a condominium that could cost $200,000 and $250,000. So I think because of just the numbers,
unless you're in the reserve where they're starting at $693 this week. So
well, yeah, but I mean, but that's what I think. It's a matter of how the markets have changed, and people just can't afford the single families, and that's not going to get any better in the future.
And the problems with the single family development is the costs are so high. The developer's got to put in a 4-bedroom house. I mean, you got the category here of 1 to 3-bedroom houses. If there was, I happen to see by accident on my way to New Fairfield, there's 2, Bobby, listen to this. There's 2 raised ranches being built up on Charlie Williams' old project, just past the prison on the right. When was the last time you saw somebody build a raised ranch in Danbury?
No.
Right? That's a 3-bedroom house. I would expect a lot of people to answer, I'd love to be able to move into a 3-bedroom house, right? It's just crazy. And a 3-bedroom house would be cheaper. And it would help with affordability. But developers, when they find a piece of land, they've got to stretch it. They got to add the extra square footage in there, and they're going to go with 4-bedroom houses.
Look at Deer Hill and look at West Terrace. They're putting 2 ginormous houses in both of those areas, Deer Hill and Claremont, that are like you practically can't walk between the houses.
Crazy.
Yeah, but the one on Deer Hill, it's the owner, and he's going to live in that one. His daughter's going to live in the other one. So that's kind of an inside deal.
Yeah.
But have you guys noticed that? Well, I tell you on the MLS I forgot the developer, but he just built two houses, one on Liberty Avenue, and the other one over up the street from there. But these are on 50 by 100 lots.
Yeah.
They're four-bedroom units, and he sold them for over $500,000.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
This makes me nauseous. Yeah.
Those are supposed to be reserved for our lower priced houses.
And entry houses, yeah. For
Entry houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah, look at it. Look at the MLS listings. It's just the two of them sold.
Wow.
And
Okay.
the Wiener property over there on off of High Street. You'll see the same thing. The guy bought both of them. He bought the lots for $65,000 a piece.
Oh, wow.
And put up 500 plus, like they sold for like 510 or something. And I said, no way is this guy going to be able to sell them. And sure enough, people from New York bought them.
Wow.
Yeah. Now you can see what that does to the bell-shaped curve.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, so I think this question hopefully will do a good job of getting at some of that.
Yeah.
All right. So that was it. That's the survey at the very end. We're promoting the workshop that we now have scheduled for Monday, January 24th. It's at the Danbury Public Library. We will look to you to help us promote this as well. And the survey will, for many people, would be their first introduction to that. We have an RSVP response built in. They can share their email with us so we can send them reminders of that meeting and any future opportunities to contribute.
Well, I think if we talk to Jennifer Delaney, she'd be somebody that has access to names of people that should be definitely invited to this. She has a lot of the people that are multifamily housing owners, and that'd be the ones we want to target along with the builders that we know. So between the building department and Jennifer's housing, we really could get a good hold on some names that people should definitely have invitations to.
Okay.
Because I think without a personal invite, I don't know how successful it'll be. If you just put it out there and say it's going to be open from this to this, but if they get a personal invitation, you have a better chance of them coming.
Right. All right, let's keep going. So we talked about that workshop already. We also have some workshops taking shape for the plan of conservation and development, of which housing is a very important component of that plan as well. We have a workshop for the POCD on December 2nd, so that's coming up very soon. And that is at 6 p.m. at the Palace Theater. And we encourage all of you to attend and to tell your friends and neighbors about the workshop. It's open to the public. There will be a presentation followed out by breakout sessions, and those sessions will cover topic areas, including housing. The week later, we're conducting a similar event. It'll be online for people that could not or were not comfortable attending the in-person workshop. That's December 9th at 6 p.m. And we have advertisements going out for this already, flyers and blasts. Sharon and Jennifer will be distributing lawn signs across town this week to help promote as well. So we're definitely trying to get the word out there. So please help us out with that.
Now, these meetings that you've set up, have you thought about just the thought that some people are more concerned now about the COVID again, and
Yes.
spacing, and how are we going to handle that? Is that something that you've taught? And I don't even know where in the library you could have it. How many people potentially could you comfortably hold without having them concerned about having to wear masks?
Well, everyone will be wearing masks.
Okay.
That is a requirement. Our staff will bring a box of masks for people that walk in without one. So that is a requirement, and it's that very concerned, which is why we are conducting the online POCD workshop. Now, because the ground is moving with us constantly with respect to COVID, I think we're going to have to assess how things look in January to determine whether or not we need to do a separate event for the affordable housing plan that is online, or if we can figure out how to do both broadcast it and conduct the in-person workshop. We'll need to sort that out, but it's something that we're constantly thinking about how best to conduct that outreach.
And you're right, things are changing by the week, and you think that we're getting a handle on it, and then all of a sudden there's more information coming out that doesn't look so good. And so, yeah, plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's Sharon. That's what we did in terms of the POCD, as Francisco said. We decided we'd try it. I have the Ferroli room down in the basement for December, and then the following week a follow-up, which is like a Zoom meeting. So we'll see how that goes in December. But I wanted to reserve the room for the January workshop just on the affordable housing plan. And if we have to change gears, we can do that after the beginning of the year, or add an electronic meeting for people who aren't comfortable. I mean, the flip of being comfortable in person is people are zoomed out at this point after 2 years almost, and trying to get people out and about. So I think we'll just monitor the situation and see how it goes. But in the meantime, that room is, you could set up stations in that room. It's large enough to accommodate a fair amount.
I can always suggest to you that any announcements that you make, you just make sure that you're saying that we are cautious about the people that are concerned about COVID issues, and we're taking those precautions. Just because when I see people driving around still, and I have my vaccine and I had it, so I feel safe. But I see people driving their cars by themselves with a mask on. So I mean, there's still a threat out there. And so you're going to have to underscore the fact that anyone coming to these things, they're going to have to feel safe, or you won't get them there.
Well, we're doing everything we could possibly think of. So it'll be one or the other, or a combination. But we got to try and get some input from the public. So, we're going deep into the toolbox. So we'll do what we.
Francisco, have you any experience with a hybrid meeting?
Yes, we've conducted many of them. They really need to be done in a controlled environment that allows you to have a good screen and camera and audio. So logistically, it's very difficult for a larger meeting or a meeting that has breakout sessions.
Right.
And this is something we talked about in planning the POCD, was that logistically it would be difficult to run that out of the Palace Theater online at the same time. So what we've agreed to do instead is we will provide a similar presentation online the week following. We'll conduct breakout groups, and we will review the findings from the prior week, provided a brief synopsis of what people had discussed at the in-person meeting, and basically replicate it online.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we have a lot of opportunities for people to get involved coming up, and we hope that you can help us promote these workshops.
Happy to.
And finally, our next steps. We presented to you last month a lot of information that we had gathered on trends and housing, and we're going to put that together into a summary memorandum of findings. And then next month, we really need to start talking about strategies for increasing the affordable housing supply. Sharon and I have kind of a running list of options, of ideas that we want to bounce off of you. We've got a little more work to do to get that ready and to present it to you, but that is what we will cover next month. And you know, I fully expect you'll give us lots of direction on that, just as you have this evening. And the online survey will make revisions based upon your comments. We'll give you one last look at it next month, and our aim is to release it first week of January. And of course, the public meeting that we need to get ready for. Our next meeting is in December, on December 20th, Monday. Same time, 3 o'clock. All right.
Sounds
And
good.
that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. This was
Francisco,
great.
thank you. You did an excellent
Yeah,
job.
that was great.
Thank you.
Thank-
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I suppose I can turn my video back on. Sorry, I was worried about losing the connection. Yeah, you know, it was a great conversation, and you all bring a lot to the table here. You know, we have expertise in getting people in a room to talk about ideas and figure out how to turn that into a plan. But you bring the ideas, and so we can't do this without you. So I very much appreciate all of the contribution that everyone made this evening. I think it's going to result in a plan that will be a meaningful tool to the community versus something that's just meeting the state's mandate. So thanks for contributing.
Well, it's a
Thank you,
pleasure
Brad.
working with
Thank
you,
you.
Francisco. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
working with all of you.
Same here. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
likewise.
Good job, everybody.
All right.
Okay, unless anybody has any other comments, I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and
Don't
Stop.
move.
by Paul, seconded by, who was that, Ari?
Harry.
Yep, seconded by Ari, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Harry, Harry, whatever.